Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. What a brilliant way to celebrate International Women's Day 2021 this year. And you're here for the very first time to mark International Women's Day. The Ireland Chapter of PMI are hosting this panel discussion. The way it was, the way it is, the way it should be. And it's sponsored by Project Foundry. So we also want to say International Men's Day is on November 19th, and that will also be celebrated by the Ireland Chapter of PMI and Pride too. So there's lots more amazing events that are going to be coming up. So my name is Taragh Loughrey Grant. I'm a producer with RTE. And the national conference is happening, the National Project Management Conference is happening on Thursday. There are still places available. I had some brilliant chats ahead of it with Dr. Sue Black, more amazing women, Dr. Martina Ryan, and also a he for she, Dr. Richard Malsman. And they inform me that as a producer, I'm also a project manager of sorts, because you're working with the team to a deadline to pull everything together on time, even if it is a live program. So I feel I'm really interested in learning all the way along about how this works. And today we have a panel for amazing women. So the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. So you have done that already by joining us this evening, because our goal and our promise over the next hour and a half is to celebrate and increase visibility of women's achievement, to forge equality. We've done a lot since the first International Women's Day was formed. I think it was 1909 in New York, a socialist party, and then it slowly but surely spread across the world. But I think we know there's still a long way to go, and this panel that are here today to do that, it's a really great diverse panel. We have Jackie Glynn, who is the president of the Ireland Chapter of PMI, Rebecca Keenan, who is the global head of process automation at XPO, and also Kate Madden, who is co-founder along with her sister Annie of Venue Health, and also Catherine Cullen. She's the program director at Technology Ireland Software Skillnet. So we're going to be talking to each of them in a couple of minutes' time. So as I said, the theme of this year is Choose to Challenge. So by being here this evening, of course, we want you to relax and get comfy. I'm sure you've had a long day, and we know, things are extremely challenging out there, whether you're working from home, homeschooling, whatever you're doing, there's a lot going on for people. But we encourage you to engage. We've all been to some amazing presentations, webinars, live events over the last number of years, and often you hear amazing speakers, but sometimes there's an accessibility problem. They're up there on stage. I've been myself, and you're paying good money to see and hear and be inspired by great people, but sometimes the access is missing. Whereas here tonight we have Mentimeter poll, so we'd love you to get involved, answer the questions, put your questions to the panel. If something isn't covered, it's a really informal chat we're going to be having. If it's something that you feel passionate about or you're stuck on, you can anonymously send in a message into chat. I won't read out names unless you want me to, and put that in there. Otherwise, get involved and engage with us. So the theme and the tagline of this event, I love it, is, as I was saying earlier, the way it was, the way it is, and the way it should be. So I can't really take credit for that. That is over to Jackie. So Jackie, you came up with that brain wave of an idea. And I think it might be, I can't take credit for it, so it might be good if you could share with everybody who's with us today what and how you came up with it.
Sure, Tara, thank you very much. First of all, I'd just like to thank the panelists. This is certainly ticking my box of something I wanted to do as only the second female president of the Irish chapter of the PMI. So thank you very much for participating this evening. As Tara said, we had lots of chats about what we are going to talk about. And typically when I talk to Tara, I say something in a sentence and Tara goes, that's it. And really where I was coming from is I've had lots of and been to lots of events in an International Women's Day. And one I was at most recently, what struck me most of all was that the audience in particular were of a younger age group. And yet the panelists on the panel, they seemed like too far removed of a role model, if you like. So let me be really clear, absolutely have your idol role models, but who's the one nearest to you that you think, oh, I'd like to be like that, how can I be like that? So that's what kind of struck me. So there was one particular question asked, and I remember thinking, that girl is not going to be able to do anything with that information. So what I thought would be a really cool thing to do was to use this first time event for the Ireland Chapter of PMI to celebrate women and International Women's Day and give a platform in particular to younger women, to give the message that you don't have to wait until your 40s or your 30s or your 50s to be successful, that women are successful along, we were going to say cradle to grave of the career, but that just sounds awful, along the roadmap of the career. And that's why we decided it was, I suppose I'm the way it was, because I'm a little bit older than the panel this evening, and the way it is, which is how we know, and the way it should be with our leading lights of our young female members on the panelists today. So that's where the idea came from, Taragh, and I'm hoping people really enjoy it.
And one of your role models, because I know we joked about from cradle to grave, because it did sound ominous, but actually there doesn't have to be an end date, you know, for a career. When you're working at something that you love, we know that that can continue. And one of your role models, Jackie, we're going to talk about later, our role models come from all walks of life,
yes,
you know, and I think be they male or female, it is International Women's Day. We have permission to talk about some of the most amazing women, and we are going to do that. I think we should kick off because we are going to get you all out of here on time. It is the school night. Go on, Jackie.
Taragh, can I just say on that point, just on the he for she piece, Project Foundry and Declan Ryan, the MD of Project Foundry, are really supportive of this, and as well as being a great digital and transformation change consultancy, they also are really excited to be part of this event because they work daily to make sure that inequality is addressed and to bridge that gap. So in the he for she mode, thank you very much, Declan and the team.
Absolutely, absolutely, well said. And Kate, I think we should follow exactly on from what Jackie was just saying about the guys in Project Foundry, because your dad is one of the most amazing he for she's I have ever heard of. So can we go back, Kate? You're co-founder at Venue Health. It is such a brilliant story. It really is. And I think we'll just let you jump in on that, because I know your stats and your data and your numbers so well, but they're not mine, they're yours. Can you tell them?
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Taragh, and thanks for everyone for coming tonight. Oh my God, my dad joins, he's going to kill me by the end of this, but anyways, as will my sister, I'd say. But basically what we are, so I'm Kate and I'm the co-founder of Venue Health, and I co-founded it with my younger sister Annie. She's not here tonight, obviously, it's just me, solo performance. But basically what Venue Health is it's a business that supplies a range of products to the equine or the horse industry, and it's particularly around stomach problems in horses. But one way we like to summarize everything together at the beginning is that we have this list of numbers. So we have a list of numbers that kind of breaks it all down to make it seem a lot more simpler. So you could say we're two sisters, myself and Annie. We did 3 young scientist projects. I'm only 20 right now, so that's why these will be very relevant. So we did 3 young scientist projects. We now sell to 4 continents. We sell to 5 royal families all around the world. We have 9 products. We have 9 people on our team. We sell to 15 countries, and we're all 100% natural. And I think that really just breaks it all down. So we'll go back to the start of Venue Health, back to the story of it all. So I mentioned that we did 3 young scientist projects. Well, that's exactly where it all began. So I entered the BT Young Scientist in 2014. So I was in 2nd year. I was only 13 at the time. And I purely entered it because my dad told me, looks good in the CV, do it. Doesn't matter if you're winning. Right, at 13, this is what I was being told. I was like, okay, grand, I'll do it. And my aunt had done it back in the day when it was sponsored by Aer Lingus, so kind of ran the family, felt like I had to do it. So I did it on a silly project about, do Mars bars make horses run faster? And I was all over the news for it, in great trouble with Mars about it, but anyways, that was a different story. And I just kind of enjoyed the whole experience of the Young Scientist. So obviously nothing really came from my Mars bar project, even though I'm still called Mars bar girl to everyone in BT. But basically, I was going to junior cert then, and poor Annie was coming into 1st year, and we went to school in Loretto on Stephen's Green, so in the middle of Dublin city centre. We're originally from Summerhill in County Meath, so we were the country girls coming into the city school. So doing a project on horses in the first place was alien to anyone really in our school, apart from the 2 or 3 others that were coming in on the bus every morning. So I dragged Annie along with me, and I was like, right, Annie, 2015, we're doing the Young Scientist, and we're getting a prize out of it this year, because I didn't win anything the year before, clearly, for obvious reasons. And I kind of dragged her along with me, made her do it with me, just because I really enjoyed it the year before, like just meeting people from everywhere, like talking, like just showing what you'd put all your work into up until Christmas time. And this year we did a project on encouraging horses to eat. So we were finding what flavors do horses enjoy, like how can we encourage them to eat when they stop, whether they're sick, whether they're just being stubborn, whatever it may be. And we ended up coming second that year in the Young Scientist in 2015. So over 6 years ago at this point, it feels like yesterday. And obviously, as you all know, with the Young Scientist comes a lot of media. So whoever gets a prize or kind of sparks an interest in the media get very involved in it. As you probably know, Taragh. So.
Yes, I've been down there interviewing people, yeah.
All over RT, countrywide, the whole shebang. We were on the news. We thought we were celebrities being on it for 30 seconds. Like,
you were. You are.
So, but what really came from that was it kind of snowballs. Like, we had no intentions of turning this idea into a business. We didn't even know what a business was. Annie was about, like, just after turning 13 first year, I was preparing for my business exam in the junior cert. That was the type of the business knowledge we had now. So we kind of didn't have any idea. And then I remember it just kind of, we got out in the media, and like the equine and agricultural companies kind of started to notice us, and they kind of started to notice like how we had just like plucked this really simple problem out of the industry of just like horses stop eating. Like, how much simpler can you get? And they just kind of recognized how simple this problem was and how we had found a simple solution for it, which was finding flavorings for the product. So that was all our first product, was just flavors, which obviously now is not our major product, but story continues. So it all snowballed. Next thing, one thing led to another, and we were brought to Equitana in Germany. So it's the largest equine trade fair in the world. So at 13 and 14, we were flown over to Germany by another Irish company, and we were basically told to transform this idea into a business idea overnight. We had no prototypes, we had nothing done, and we were just told to pitch this idea to these investors and to these other like potential customers, more or less. And obviously at 13 and 14 you have to be 16 to fly alone, so Dad had to come for a little help. So he was kind of in it from the beginning, and we went over. Again, one thing led to another. We ended up having our first sales over there without even having a product on the table. And I was things kind of settled down when we got home from Germany, because I was doing the junior cert, which I thought was be all and end all at that time. So everything stopped for the junior cert. But then once junior cert passed very swiftly, I was in TY, and it was compulsory in my school. So I was like, what better chance than to try this business thing, whatever this may be. I was like, it'll keep me busy, do you know, because I always hear people, the dossier and all the rest. This will keep me busy, it'll get me out of school, do you know, tick all the boxes. And I started entering all the entrepreneurship, student entrepreneur competitions, obviously dragging Annie along with me, the baby of the family. And we were just dragging her along to everything. And it just started to grow and grow. And we just started to expand our ideas of the business. So we started off with simple, like adding flavors to horses' feed, whichever they prefer they got, like just spoiled rotten, more or less. And then it kind of expanded into like the real problems of the industry. So it came down to the simplicity of being at a race course. We grew up with horses. We grew up going to the Christmas festival in Leopardstown. We grew up seeing all the big names, the big faces. So it literally came down to walking into the parade ring, pretending to be Michael O'Leary's nieces, walking into the parade ring and going straight up to the big bods and being like, hi, I'm Kate. Like, what are your problems? Like at 15, they didn't take any heed of me. We were like, we're doing a Young Scientist project. So they were like, grand, everyone loves the Young Scientist, everyone was willing to help. But sure, we were using that for our own research. Went home after the Christmas festival, realized that stomach problems in horses was a massive issue. And that was kind of how we started working on our next product. It was all about like stomach problems, like really similar problems to what humans have. Like horses are bigger, but they have similar problems at the end of the day, do you know, like whether it's from stress, whether it's from change of environment, whether it's stop eating their food, like at the end of the day, it's very similar to the sort of problems that we could experience. And we kind of began to grow that idea, got more research, got obviously tested in labs, prototypes, other larger businesses came in behind us, which you could call mentors. They all came in behind us. They were kind of like giving us advice. Sure, we had no idea. Like that really was the big thing. We started off in our school uniforms. All our pictures, if you Google us back to 2015, we're in our little maroon school uniforms and our striped shirts with our little dubs, the white socks up to the knees, and like we were very childish and immature. That it really came to the point where Dad, kid me, was like, right, this needs to change. Like, no one will take you seriously in this school uniform. They won't even recognize you from the girl getting off the bus. So we decided to change, and we decided we needed to build a brand for ourselves as well as the business, you know. And it really came down to the simple thing of dressing to impress. As stupid as it may sound, and as like cliche as it sounds, it really did come to that, because we needed people to take us seriously. So we made our own uniform. We got the white jeans, the jackets, the navy t-shirts, the logos, and that's kind of how it all grew. But like going back to the products, like we obviously, because we were so young, like being taken seriously was one of the biggest problems we faced. But once we realized that we could be taken seriously, everyone else believed it too. And it was kind of just the way that we approached all the situations. But then also with that, like I was doing the junior cert, Annie did the junior cert, we both went through the leaving cert with this business beside us, which was equally as important to us as our education, really. Like we wanted to get the points, we wanted to get into college, you know, we still wanted to have our side track of education beside us. And we'd always heard of the college parties, and that was really, you know, that was
that was the goal.
That was the goal. And Kate, that's like, it is an amazing story. I don't think anybody listening who's with us at the moment couldn't think that is amazing. And then what I love knowing about, and I think it's really interesting, again, given the theme this year of the challenge, were the challenges. So I know your mom was busy behind the scenes as well, keeping everything working and going at home. And that was her chosen way to do this. And your dad's way was to go, right, I'm going to go with them on wherever the journeys are, those trips are. There were certain times where you used what you had to your advantage. So whether it was disarming people, where they thought they underestimated you, which is a huge issue that women face in many areas of their career, but you used it to your advantage.
Yeah, so that was kind of one of the big things when we started off. It comes back to the school uniforms, you know, not being taken seriously, which obviously you really wouldn't. Like, let's be real, when you think about it, you think they're doing it for a project that they're doing in school, which we were, but we changed that. And yeah, like being taken seriously, like we kind of, it came down to like all these disadvantages were laid out in front of us very clearly, you know, young female entrepreneurs, the male dominated industry of the equine world. Like, even though everyone kind of stereotypes horse riding, girls on their little pink ponies, like when you go behind the scenes into the business world, it's very much like old traditional men. Like it's very male dominated behind the scenes. Like all the agricultural companies are male dominated, which isn't necessarily wrong. It's just that there's more interest in these fields for the men. And that's why when we went in, it could have been seen as very intimidating. But I think it's because we were so young and so naive, if you wanted to say, that we didn't really have any previous experience of men are better than women. Do you know, like we grew up in primary school where it's like the boys against the girls and all the rest, but like we never had like real experiences of how these men were going to be better than us. So we really like took these disadvantages that many people would say and turned them into advantages. So yeah, we were young, but that got us the media coverage, and being girls got us media coverage, and we were able to be taken more seriously.
I love as well, Kate, there's an image of you. Tell us about the press release in the back pocket and a certain government launch.
Yeah, so along with the, let's say, the immaturity and the being naive and being in school came with a lot of funny stories, to be fair. One of the funny stories that I think most people remember when we tell them is we went to school on Stephen's Green. Our dad used to drop us to the Lewis on his way to work. So we used to get the Lewis and I'd come down by Stephen's Green. We got off at Harcourt Street, was just a shorter walk. But Stephen's Green, we decided we'd get off Stephen's Green today. Walking down Stephen's Green, and I was like, Annie, like, that's the Department of Agriculture. They're on Kildare Street. Like, sure, we'll be 2 minutes late for school. Who cares? Like, you go in and like we have the swipe card, so you get signed in. So I was like, you go swipe me in, here's my card, and I'll go up there for a quick wander. And we went in, and I went up with a press release in my school uniform. I would say I was in the junior cert, and I walk up and I was like, I'm looking for Taragh, his assistant, Minister Coveney's assistant at the time. And I was like, I'm looking for Taragh, and they were like, okay, why? And I was like, I need to talk to Taragh. And they were like, okay, no further questions. Like, this girl, this is your daughter. I went in and I was like, give this to Minister Coveney and tell him I want him to ring me. right? Sure, I'd say I was in and out of the Department of Agriculture about 6 times in the 1 week, just handing in the same press release over and over and over again. And sure, eventually they have to ring you. Like they otherwise. And then we managed to get Minister Coveney to launch our first products. He was in all of our posters in the beginning, like any interviews we were doing, we got like his testimonials, we got like quotes from him. Like he had no idea what he was getting himself into. Like, even today, like whenever we see him at different like state visits or anything like that, because obviously President Higgins is really involved with the Young Scientist. And the reason why I'm called Mars Bar Girl actually is because President Higgins used it in his opening ceremony. Every year he brings up Mars Bar Girl, this fantastic idea that he's in love with, Mars Bar Girl. So every time we see him, he's like, oh, Mars Bar Girl, like that's what I'm known as. Well, again, that did come to our advantage. We got to meet Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall. We got to meet Prince Harry and Meghan.
We won't even go there, Kate. We won't even go there.
We got to meet a lot of, like, we got to go to all the state visits. So we got to meet all the rugby players. We got to meet, you know, all the things that we were interested in. And it just kind of showed that, like, making those small little connections, like, really came to our advantage over time. And, like, having Minister Coveney there, we were able to be invited to different things, and he was a recognizable face to us as we were to him, which was definitely came to our advantage too.
Absolutely. When you were talking about those challenges, were there moments where, as you got a little bit older, I mean, you're still in third level and you're running this successful business, the two of you, but were there moments where you realized, oh God, we are standing on the shoulders of giants, of those who have gone before, the glass ceilings maybe that were broken, the he for she's also that helped other women get there?
Yeah, so yeah, like one of the big things is when we were all starting off, because we were so young, like we'd no experience, and one of the big things we did is that we asked for help. Like that's kind of one of the biggest advice we give to anyone starting a business, is to ask for help, because any big business started as a small one back in the day. And one of our greatest mentors was Dr. Pierce Lyons. He passed away a few years ago, but he was the co-founder and the president of Alltech. It's an Irish American kind of biotech agricultural company. And his, another funny story, we just bombarded him basically. He was doing an interview in RTE on Countrywide with Damien O'Reilly. We knew Damien because we've been in and out a while, so we dropped in a letter, told Damien to give it to him. A few weeks later, Dr. Lyons rang Annie, my younger sister Annie. She missed it. First of all, she was swimming. Second time he rang, she missed it again because she was, I don't know, running or something. And then the third time she nearly got her phone taken off her because she was in school. But like Dr. Lyons, like multi-millionaire, like big co-founder of this business that's worth billions, and literally the first thing he said to us was, trust me and I will help you, because he was like, it was their way of giving back to these smaller companies. And it really comes down to, like, if you don't know what you're doing, like, keep it simple. And that's kind of one of the big things we say, is that half the time business people don't even understand business jargon, and it's really when you just break it down into simple English, you get a lot more work done. And I think that was definitely like one of the big things that we learned, was just asking for help.
And Kate, I'm going to go to some of the polls now in a second, because people have been, thank you guys for joining in with this and engaging and just clicking your way through the poll. We'll go through the results in a second. But Kate, one thing I love as well is you're a grafter. And I think there's a lot of real in this panel, which is what I said from the beginning, that we were going to promise you. You're going to get answers to the questions that you ask. These are real women who have great stories to say. There is no roadmap for anybody's career here that is as clear-cut as A to B. So Kate, for you, was it first formula that worked?
I don't think anyone's first formula works, to be honest. And like, some people that aren't involved in business often think it is, and they often see the bright sides and the easiness of it. But like when we were starting our first product, like our motto in Fenu Health is NGU, to never give up, because it was our 150-second formula that worked. So we always say, like, what would have happened if we had stopped at 151? Like,
that gives me a chill. I love
like
that.
If we decided that we had enough, we weren't going to do it anymore, we would have stopped. And like, there was a lot of barriers along the way, like even aside from being young and female in the male dominated industry, it even came with like the challenges of school, like doing leaving cert. And like I said to you, Taragh, the other day about how, like, in the group of 100 girls that were in my school, only 5% of us, only 5 of us went and did something extra, whether it was me with the business, whether it was debating, whether it was being on the Irish hockey squad. Like, only 5 out of my year actually branched out and did something extra, if you want to say. And I think that's just purely because people are kind of believe that they can't, you know. And like, even though like everyone was like really focused on their academics and it was a high performing school in the academics, like a lot of girls I feel are just, they don't think they could do it because it's just not, they're not educated enough to realize that it's just like a hobby. You can look at it like a hobby. Some of the Irish hockey girls are able to go from training session to school to study back to training, and that was like us. We just had the business when they would have been doing their training sessions, and it's just really trying to normalize even the stigmas behind like what girls can and can't do even from a young age. Like
when you told me that, I was sad, because I think one of the reasons that I love being involved and working on events like this is to talk to other women, because sometimes when we're working in silos, we don't know what other people are doing. And I think project managers especially, because you're so busy keeping all the plates spinning. Everybody here was working today in the full-time job, and you're keeping the plates spinning. And the reason that everybody on the panel has volunteered their time here is to share the stories, what really is going on, to keep the conversation going and make that number go up from 5% right the way up. Because we know the stats and the data. We've all heard the analogies of men when they are perhaps 70% qualified, probably less, but we're being kind, for a role, they will go for the role. And we may not go for the same role until we're 110 to 20%.
Yeah.
We tick every box, and we've all done it. And Catherine, we're going to be talking about that later on. Jackie, we're going to be talking about how you grenaded into that and exploded that up out of there to go for it. And Rebecca, who we're going to come to now as well, is doing it and is living it, which I love. I think, Katrina, will we look at some of the Mentimeter results that we have, and I'd love to see where everybody is at the moment. Sorry now, Katrina, that's like I've thrown a grenade into Katrina's Mentimeter poll organization skills. I'd love to know where people are logging into us from around the world. And I know that is a really naughty poll thing to do. Just pick one and start there. But here we are, and do again send in your questions, get the chat going, and everybody in the panel has said that you're very welcome. Please do reach out and connect on LinkedIn. Where in Ireland and in the world are you joining us from? So primarily Dublin, Cork, Wicklow, Dublin, Belfast, Meath, Galway, Malahide, Clare. There is that. Where's that? The Sea of the Sea of Confusion. Hello, yes, look, all over the country. I believe it looks like all over the country there. So thanks a million. And also we had another question there, which is what was the next? What does International Women's Day mean to you? Let's have a look at that. So a chance to stop, equality and recognition, inspiring women, reflection, inspiration, kindness and power, assessing where we are, very important. A chance to stop and congratulate myself. I do a great job. Power pose to you. Challenging gender stereotypes and bias, exactly. We're looking for equality for everybody. A lot of women is improving, but still needs to be constantly irrigated, yes, or it's constantly shaken up. Celebrating women in all walks of life, as a mother of 2 daughters, paving the way to allow strong women. That's exactly it. I feel like that. Awesome. Oh, I love that. Awesome. Like it. Jeez, that's going to catch on. That should be the theme for next year's International Women's Day. We'll just explain it to the world what Mná is. So, Rebecca, lovely. And thank you so much, Kate. Well, I know that we're going to be having big panel discussion. I want to ask you a little bit more about Brexit. Look, we have loads of questions. We're going to be all talking in a little bit, just to get all of you sort of touch base before the questions come in. And Rebecca, a good place to start here. Have you ever had a mentor? 61% so far said yes, 39% obviously haven't. Rebecca, you're a global leader, and you got there very quickly by a lot of hard work, and you faced challenges. Your blog that you've written and you posted on LinkedIn, and which you also did last year on the theme for this year, Choose to Challenge. Can we start there in where you're at right now in your position and on International Women's Day?
Yeah, so great to be here. Great to listen to Kate's story. I probably could have listened much longer.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, no, so I have a global role in my company Explayo, and it's always interesting when you come around to International Women's Day, and not that we should celebrate women every day, but you know, it really is a time of the year to reflect. And this year's Choose to Challenge hashtag really, I think, resonated with me, because I think I put it in kind of throughout the blog, that you know, challenging yourself is almost the first step before you can challenge anything else on your journey or around your journey. And that's always been, well, I think for the last couple of years, that's been my biggest blocker, I would say. So it's myself slowing myself down at times. Because, you know, when I was coming up through my career, and I'll kind of backtrack in a minute, but and I was a woman. I was young. I'm usually one of the youngest on panels. Kate, you have me well beat today. But and you know, with that came a lot of comments, and there was hard work around, you know, actually to become a global lead from a grad, which is where I started. You know, that takes a lot of work. And then when you put on top of that some of the pressures of being put on a pedestal and things like that, you know, there's been challenges throughout the years, big, small, and kind of everything in between. But I think this year's choose to challenge, and, you know, challenging yourself to be a better version of you, challenging yourself to, you know, have conversations with people and around your organization. You know, I was part of a coffee morning Explayo where I work today, and it was just fantastic that people feel more empowered to actually be able to have these conversations. So, you know, that's where a lot of my inspiration comes from, particularly around International Women's Day.
Working with Explayo and working in tech, sometimes you found yourself in a room where you were the youngest and also possibly the most senior. How did you deal with those situations, leading a team? And now obviously you've been leading remotely. How have you dealt with some of those challenges? And are you able to, is it a fake it till you make it? How have you dealt with the pressure of that?
I think at a very base level, you know, something that I have grown up with from my parents is you have to be kind, you have to lead with empathy, and that has continued into my career. So I think, you know, and it's true that when I and still today, you know, I manage teams where I'm not always the oldest, which is, you know, if you look at that traditional who's the most senior in the room, you look for whoever the oldest gray-haired man is typically. Hopefully that will start changing.
You've had experience of that, haven't you, Rebecca? Sorry to cut in there, because I think it's important, where you've walked in and people have gone to shake, looking for you, essentially, your role as a leader, and have shaken hands with an older man beside you.
Yes, it's been interesting, and you know, it used to really annoy me. Not that it doesn't annoy me now. I think I can just handle it a little better. But I think changing the perception of where we see or what we see a leader being is so important. And I guess it ties back to that quote, which, you know, I see used a lot, and I do believe in, you know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So it's, people assume, even when I look at I'm the oldest of 5 kids. That's where a lot of people say a lot of my drive comes from. But, you know, my youngest brother and sister are twins, a boy and a girl. They're 21. And one of them is studying to be a doctor. And I remember when we were announcing this, a load of people assumed it was my brother straight off the bat who was going to be studying medicine. I was like, no, it's my sister. But again, it's just those ingrained, I guess, gender norms that have been in us from birth that, you know, we really have to try to dismantle from a very young age. And I think that's where some of the conversations have to happen at that younger side. So it's fantastic that we're having these conversations now. But again, even like I went and I made a video with a robot that my sister played to her 4 and 5-year-old school kids. She's a teacher. And because again, that's where those, you know, incorrect gender norms begin to be formed. And that's where we need to also be having these types of conversations.
There was a brilliant documentary series made by Channel 4 years ago about children aged, you know, different ages, but it was really scary to see that girls at the age of 6 already, when they were asked to draw engineer, doctor, and, you know, the highly paid professions, and they were often drawing men in those roles. It broke my heart. And as the mother now of an 8-year-old, as a, you know, and 2 boys and a girl, but for all of them, it's really important that we share them, the messages and learnings that we're talking about today. But we just exactly what you're saying there about gender stereotypes. You know what else is interesting? You're the eldest. Kate, are you the eldest?
I am, yep.
Catherine is the eldest. Jackie? No, me neither. I'm one of 12. So, but it is really interesting. I think, you know, that the belief and where it comes from in our youth, and how we're helping conversations like this to change going forward. So the challenges, though, were there times again for you, Rebecca, that you knew, as I was saying to Kate earlier, that you knew you were standing on the shoulders of giants. You weren't alone. Your mentors, the people behind you, what were they, and when were those moments? When did you realize them?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting journey of probably self-reflection I've been on, and it's always interesting looking back. It's quite different. I'm in a position today where I have a global title, I have a team behind me, I have experience. So sometimes I feel like I almost blinded a little by where I am today versus where I was a couple of years ago. But, you know, the people who I've had around me have been so key to all of that. And, you know, starting just at home with my family, you know, my parents, my siblings, just, you know, well, my family are the best part of me. And growing up, you know, it was never a question of, you know, you couldn't do something. It was, what did you want to do? And no matter what that answer was, okay, that's where we're all going to put our focus to. So that was the first kind of, you know, bolstering I had around me. I then moved into college. I was in a predominantly male area in college as well. I studied computer science and business in Trinity. So again, there wasn't a lot of females floating about. But again, I was able to surround myself with fantastic people, fantastic group of women as well, men too. But, you know, female friendship has been such a key part of my growing up when going into college and then moving into my career as well. You know, that power of community that's around you. And I think I tried to reject that for a while at the beginning of my career. And I think it was, when I look back, I think it was more so, you know, I was young, I was moving quicker in my career than some people thought was appropriate. They were like, how is she doing it? You know, this isn't fair. I started kind of winning awards and I was on 30 under 30 lists, and it was just, there was negativity almost around it. And I think I allowed it to consume me too much, and kind of said, well, I don't need anyone, I'm fine by myself. And I really had to snap myself out of it, and thank God I did, because now when I look at the group of women who I have around me in work, you know, I thank the stars every day that they're there and they're cheerleaders. And, you know, I think it's, most days you're fine. I think as women, you know, like most days it's fine, but it's the bad days and you need someone to just like push you along and say, you're fine, you've got it. They're the days that makes the difference. And for me, female friendship in the workplace and at home has just been, there's nothing stronger that I've seen.
I love everything you just said there. I've been scribbling here because I know in the panel discussion, I want to get that, open that up for you all. The branding of yourself, the importance of it, the grouping together, the friendships, the safe space with a mentor, and to even break down what the mentor means, because it can be very informal. Jackie has some, we'll get to that when we talk about Jackie's story. And I think all of you and all of us have a mentor, or have a couple of mentors at different stages in our career, but we may not have put that label on them. And reverse mentoring, there's a huge amount that we can all learn from each other regardless of age, and sharing that information and reverse mentoring, we can look at that as well. But I love, and thank you for sharing that. I think to share the vulnerability is empowering, you know. I think when you, there's a great line about when you are, when are you at your most vulnerable? And it is when you are sharing your need for help, when you are reaching out.
I think as women, I think sometimes particularly words like confident and ambitious were like almost weaponized against me a lot. And, you know, that made me get angry, rightly so, I think. And now I lean into it. It's like, yeah, try to stop me, try to stop any confident woman, you know, I dare you to, you know, be proud of our accomplishments. Because even sometimes, you know, when those lists I was on and the awards, like I was so proud of myself, my family were so proud of me. And then there was almost this narrative of, well, you know, don't seem cocky and, you know, don't be too confident. And I was like, you wouldn't be saying this to a man, get out of it, kind of thing.
Remember when the bossy conversation came out? It was so true and so annoying. I mean, you've never heard of a bossy man.
Yeah.
You've just heard of an ambitious man. So, and again, this is not and never was about men bashing. We all here love and adore many men in our lives. It's just about equality. That's all. And of course, wouldn't it be wonderful to say we don't need International Women's Day or International Women's Day events, or that we don't need gender balances or quotas, that we don't need, of course we need gender balance, but we don't need quotas. Of course, that would be great, but we're not there yet. We still have a long way to go. 100 years down the road from the first International Women's Day over, and we still have a long way to go. Rebecca, I again listen to you all day, but I'm going to go on, and we're going to open up again many of the points. I'm looking at the questions here. that people have, and we're going to come to those Q&A at the end. But also, just have a look at this. What progress have you seen in gender equality in life or work? It's just good for the panel to have this too. The Me Too movement, of course. Setting goals at a company level to empower women, absolutely. Born and raised in a country where equality was taken for granted. Only when I moved here, I realised, wow, what inequality means. I wonder where you came from. That's really, really interesting. I wonder where that was. If you're still there, you could maybe send in a message to us in the chat. Of course you're still there. But greater acceptance in relationships that a woman can be successful and still, well, yes, exactly. We know about that. And I think we'll talk about this, Catherine, now. Great tee up for you is we can have everything, just not at the same time. We may have to make some tough decisions. And I think, Catherine, no better woman, you've done that. And I also wanted to talk about the sacrifices that everybody's had to make to get where they are. Catherine, you're the Programme Director at Technology Ireland Software SkillNet, and your career and your career trajectory has been really interesting. So thanks a million for joining us.
No problem.
A little bit about your road to where you are.
Thank you, Tara. Hello, everyone. I don't know how I'm going to follow that. I know, Jackie, you said that you'll get some very down to earth type of commentary. So I'm really going to bring you all down to earth now.
Great.
But I actually, one of my mentors actually gave me this book for my daughter, Blazing Trails.
Book.
Yeah, but my daughter actually found one of our panelists in it. So I don't know if you can see that. Kate.
Whoop, whoop.
So I'm going to have to send that out to you, Kate, and get a signed copy because it was wonderful.
Catherine,
so,
well done. If I ran into another room, there'd be another copy. We could probably just keep going. Yeah.
So I guess my story, I'm the eldest of 6, and I'm from a farmer's daughter from County Cavan. So growing up, you in that role, you were kind of a natural leader anyway, and you kind of were the boss, whether your family liked it or not. So I was reflecting on, and I'd said this to you, Tara, that I was very naive, or I didn't have any awareness of what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. The kind of the grounding point that I refer to is when we'd be going to school in the morning, my mum would be turning off Morning Ireland. And she'd say, now go to school, get a good education, and don't marry a farmer. So, and I think it was because she was after coming in after probably milking 40 cows before she even got us out of bed in the morning. But I guess my husband isn't a farmer, but I am trying to persuade him to dabble in a few hens or something. But I think the message was education is important. And I went off to college, I grafted, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go off with my friends and have a good time. But it was instilled in me that, get a job, a good pensionable job, or something that's for security, and financial independence was very important to me and my family. So when I started working, again, I didn't really have a real plan. I was just going to get a job, and I was like, I had no awareness. And I think if I had any awareness, I'd be so much more intimidated maybe about the prospects that were ahead of me. But I suppose we're coming from and it's not too long ago, but it was like children should be seen and not heard.
Yes.
And it kind of suppressed your confidence a little bit. And I know now that, as I was going through college and going through my early career in financial services, that I was rehabilitating my confidence the whole time, because I didn't know when. I was probably a naturally quiet person, or a more reflective person anyway, but my confidence was always quite reserved and held back. But once I started working, and I realized that I was getting recognition for it. So work ethic was a hugely important factor for me and my family. And unfortunately, I did curse my mother that she's given me that work ethic. Sometimes I'd rather be a little bit lazier than I am. But I started getting recognition in work, and I started to equate this. Well, this is really nice. I feel good about this validation, and it made me work harder. And I got on this vicious circle merry-go-round that the harder I work, the more validation I might get personally. And I would say I'm an ambitious person, but not in a competitive way to kind of compete against my peers or anything like that. I'd be more passive in that way. If it's different if I'm on a football pitch, I'm probably a little bit more aggressive there. But in work, I was ambitious for me, and I was just loving the validation, and I was getting promoted, and it just kept progressing, and I went in at entry level in funds, and it was a time when we were working hard and playing hard, and I was just loving life.
And Catherine, when you were going home, was your mum interested? And we know exactly what you mean by the farmer. There's plenty of fine, brilliant, hugely successful female farmers out there too, as well as men. And I know exactly what your mum meant, because my mum's family are in farming, and it can, especially then, it was very tough sides to it. But was your mum asking when you were going home, how are you getting on now? Are there promotions? Was she interested?
Oh, she couldn't, I guess, even when you were in college, she was like, well, what kind of a job will you get out of that?
Yeah.
It was, you come home and you'd tell her, like I was running home and ringing her all the time, telling her how work was going, and explaining the situations to her. And it was a different world for her. She didn't have that exposure at all.
Was she excited for you or nervous? She just wanted you to have the steady job.
She was excited. She was very proud, I would say. I think she was excited for me, and as she could see that I was doing well, and especially as I started to come to different junctures in my career that I might want to take a breather, press pause, or maybe try something different. She got worried then, because she could see maybe the financial independence I had built up, the success that I had built up, and she was a little bit cautious for me, going, well, do you think is that the right time to be doing this? And it's probably coming from her own background. And I suppose understanding now, I can understand now that I would back myself to get something different. I would back myself to come in and out. But that took me a little bit of time to realize that as well. So it was cautious for me, but it was more a representation of her understanding of the job market, of her understanding of independence and financial independence as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was asking for, because it's a different generation, and I can almost see your mum. We all can. I think everybody she's probably very similar to my own mum, a nurse, but still the steady job and the income. And when you take the risks and move, and actually, let me not jump on that. So what did you decide when it was time? Because, and also the changes that you experienced in your own personality.
So I was kind of had my daughter Emer. She's 10 now, and when I was off work and had that maternity leave, it was like the happiest time ever. But I went back into work. There had been a kind of an acquisition or a merger, and I went back into a different role, a different organization, and I went back in 1,000%. I was like, still recognizing I had a mother and responsibilities, but I was in the big game now, and I really had to mix it up with my peers, and probably felt a little bit intimidated. And if I thought I was a grafter before, I was definitely starting to graft, and my work probably started to consume me a little bit. And it'd be coming up to 6 o'clock in the evening time, and my husband and I'd be going, oh, who's going to get Emer? And I was like, can you get her? Or if I had to get her, it was almost like I was resenting having to go to get my daughter because I had unfinished work to do. And that's not the way it was starting. This pressure and this conflict was starting to build up in me all the time. And but I was still I was laughing. I was putting myself under so much pressure. And at one stage, I actually was having a panic attack. And it was the one days I was working from home. And I was like, I've got this pain in my chest. And I was going, God, no wonder did I hurt myself running, or did I get an injury or something? And I was still working away. And I said, I'll actually not go in today. I'll just work from home. But I was working. And realized I couldn't even breathe. And my sister ended up having to bring me to hospital. And they were like, there's nothing wrong with your heart, there's nothing wrong with your lungs, you're actually having a panic attack. And that was kind of the tipping point for me, when I was like, this isn't adding up. And I started to progress, and still kind of taking on more responsibility, and really, if the harder, there's a quote coming up, but the harder the job was at work, I would just go after it. And I think I started to get recognized for that, and it was still me validating, me proving to myself of what I could do. And I, we're trying to expand our family, and I was going to doctor's appointments and coming straight back into work after doctor's appointments. I was just totally detached that one may or may not be impacting the other. And I was speaking to my boss about a role that I was going to be expanded into, and it was a global role, and it was a promotion, and this was it. Everything that I had worked for, everything that I was waiting for, and I knew it was coming. And as he was talking, and my head was like, yes, but my heart was like, no. And the words that came out of my mouth was, no, I can't take it. And I couldn't believe I said it. I couldn't believe I turned down the opportunity, but it was a huge weight on my shoulders that I did. Because at the time I was very sad about it. At the time I was very, I gave up, but it was the right thing for me to do at that point in time.
Very brave.
And that's what I just talk about, pressing pause, because I didn't have a plan. I was going through all of this stuff and I didn't even know I was going through it. It's like years later, you kind of look back and you kind of realize, wow, that's actually what I was going through. I just totally went into it head first. But you do need to take a step out. If any of this is resonating with anybody, you just have to try and press pause. But actually, something forced me to press pause.
That's it. And sorry, Catherine, to come in there. I'm looking at the clock as well. But you're nailing something really important, I think, for everybody at different parts of their career, but in particular does relate to women. We're seeing from the Deloitte and the Accenture studies recently about how the pandemic is affecting women in the workplace. Jackie's going to talk about it in a second as well, about her own decisions and the pivot points that she had to come to due to career choices, also as a mum, as well. But Catherine, I said brave. It wasn't. It was honest, real, and you did the right thing, and that's not easy sometimes. But when after that, you then, how did you feel being out? Did you go shoulders down, relax, or did panic start to come in? And did that voice of that's the job, the certainty, and next step?
Yeah, it was. I was kind of winding down at work, and it's amazing the perspective that distance and that pressure being off your shoulders gave you. I was actually thinking logically for the first time in years and years. And I had planned to finish Netflix. I had planned to just chill out and
finish Netflix. It sounds like a line from Homer, doesn't it? Yeah.
But I just, do you think I could settle myself? Not a bit. I painted everything in sight. I became.
And the house looks great, Catherine. I've seen it in the background. Well done.
Well, I didn't touch this one, but it was.
Oh, okay.
It was. I became a professional athlete nearly. I was in the gym. I went back to football, but all the while I was thinking, okay, when do I go back? When do I go back? Will I ever get back? And but I chose to go back just to doing something part-time, and but all the while I had so much perspective, and I kind of started to really realize what I wanted, what suited me, and even though and what did I get a kick out of from work, and how could I bring those things back into my life. And so I started working with Digital SkillNet, and I'm meeting women like me all the time through one part of that role. So it's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done. But it definitely taught me to, and I'm counseling these women, and anyone that will listen to me, I will counsel every day. And I think it's very good to keep counsel. And probably half my mentors don't realize that they are my mentors. But
if people listening, Catherine, want to reach out, you're to all of you on LinkedIn. That is an option. So thank you for that, because I think some people here, I'm looking at some of the comments coming in, people these are all very relevant depending on what stage you're at for all of us. Catherine, women returners, is just before I let you go, there's something that a message that you really feel strongly about this. This is an area that doesn't get talked about a lot. It's for all returners, obviously male and female, but a lot of what you're talking about here is relation to women.
Yeah, it is, and it's when I thought it was everything that I was going through was just me, but I meet literally hundreds of people on an annual basis who are going through similar things, and they're feeling that they've stayed out too long. And I was afraid to stay out in case I didn't get back in. And these are women who were brave enough to stay out and prioritize different things or manage different things that were going on in their lives. And I really want, and the future and what I see in the future for this is that men and women can come and go in and out of the workplace as they please, not be afraid of losing their position, of losing their skill set. They're building up so many skills all the time, whether they're managing a family, managing a home, on school boards of management, whatever the case may be. And it's just to keep embracing your time out of your career break. And we're always going to be challenging the companies. And I definitely feel something palpable out there that companies are so willing to change. They just need the toolkits to enable that. And we're working on that at an industry level as well. But I'd love for women just to have that freedom to press pause on their career, and an environment that they will be welcomed back in. And it's
sorry, go ahead.
And just to kind of finish up that, I was always trying to aspire to one of these women, because all of the trailblazers before me had set the scene that we could work in these big corporations and be so successful. And it was called having it all. And I was trying to have someone else's version of having it all. And I think what I've learned is just you can have it all in your own way, with the parameters that you carve out for yourself, with the things that excite you and satisfy you. And when you build your own pathway, it'll lead to a lot more contentment for you.
And you know what, my shoulders went down. I could feel myself relaxing, because the gig economy frightened a lot of people when it came along, certainly anyone over the age of 30, early days. And now we're realizing there are huge benefits in it for employers and employees, and you've just highlighted those for employees. Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm seeing questions coming in here in comments, so I'm keen, and we'll get to those in a couple of minutes' time. And some of the points you raised and the quotes as well in relation to all of your conversations so far, we'll get to. Jackie, you are the second only ever president of the Ireland Chapter of the PMI. Your journey here is brilliant. I'm going to stop talking and I am going to hand over. Will you please, given the way it is, the way it was, and the way it should be, the way it was, the way it is, and the way it should be, where we are now, your career and how you've seen that change. No pressure, Jackie. I am handing you over the mic.
Drop the mic, Tara. Thank you. Ladies, I'm humbled to be following. That has just been such amazing sharing of different experiences. And as you went through your different experiences, it made me think about my start and where I came from. So I was the youngest in my family. I was a family of 5. I had 4 older brothers, so I was the youngest and I was the girl. So you can imagine I was spoiled rotten. I came from a very working class area, Dublin. A lot of my brothers and my dad worked in the civil service. So, the pensionable job, I'm not saying, but that's, that was the goal. Work in the bank, work in the civil service, all of that. I can remember when I was in Leaving Cert year, different days those days, couldn't afford to go to college. So remember in careers guidance being directed towards the bank and the civil service. And I remember thinking, wow, I don't want to be in a job where the same job forever, which was the perception, I suppose, that I had of the civil service at that point. And just around that time, computers started to really break into the business world. And I suppose I started to have a thought process, a sense terribly like I was planned. And I was a little bit in a mission. I wanted a job that would change, that I would never be bored in. That was my one my one goal. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to, you know, start a job and in 20 years time not be doing the same job. That's the simplest way to put it. I went and I sorted myself out, and I decided I needed to get one of those jobs, permanent and pensionable, in order to put myself through computer science in Trinity. So like Rebecca, I did it 3 nights a week for 4 years. You could count on one hand the number of females in my class. And when I was looking for that permanent job to support myself, I went to building societies and banks and everything. And one thing that really struck me, and I know you ladies laughed the other night when I told you about this, was I went for an interview in one of the building societies in Delir Street, and this very nice gentleman interviewed me, and it was an admin job. That's what that's where I was at, and he asked me what I wanted to do. And I said I wanted to get into this new emerging world of computers and build a career. And he very firmly told me that I would be better off doing a typing course and becoming a secretary. Now, let me caveat, the best people I've known in the world have been secretaries and executive assistants, because they're keys to all the organizations I've worked in. But what was interesting was that he immediately said that I couldn't do it. And I came from a family of 4 boys where I saw myself no different, and I just decided I was going to do it. So I graduated before I was 21 in college, and I went into the tech world. So Rebecca, I absolutely can count millions of times in the earlier part of my career being the only girl on the team. I can remember, and to Kate's point, I used it to my advantage because people underestimated you and wanted to explain things to you and didn't understand that you had knowledge too. So I used that to my advantage. I can remember being in rooms later on in my career where there were a lot of, I was in one company, I won't mention it, but very highly technical infrastructure. And I was in a room with a whole load of really talented men. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what am I doing here? And then I just went, you know what, they have a technical skill and I'm bringing my project management skills to the table. And what I need to do is harness their skills. So I quickly stopped and went, okay, what they're telling me is things I need to do, but this is how I'm going to do it. So for me, my journey was slightly different to where all you guys have started. And I did go into tech for that reason, because it was change and it has constantly emerged since then. I suppose to Catherine's point, I really went hell for leather, and didn't really start a family until I was in my mid to late 30s, and had my daughter Michaela. And I suppose that brings a different perspective on what life is. And like Catherine, I'd worked in the companies, I'd worked in the global company, had my eye on the key management position, got it and said, no, I don't want it, I don't like it. 6 months, I don't like it, I don't want to do this. What do I want to do? I was constantly looking for something that would make me, my true authentic self. And then of course, when I had Michaela, I had all those pressures that Catherine talked about, despite having a great he for she and my husband, but you still have all those pressures. So I made a choice to kind of, I suppose what some would say a sideways move, but it was still at a very significant role. It was just in a different domain. And I decided to do that until Michaela, and I stayed full-time working until Michaela was going into secondary school. And I suppose what that allowed me to do was, use my parental leave, take time off, spend great summers with my daughter in Wexford, and do all the great mom things. And I loved being a mom. I love being a mom. It was the biggest eye-opener to me to actually, as a lady in business who came to motherhood later on in life, to see the great women we have who are moms and what they do, CEOs of their house, and all the things they do consistently to run what they need to do. So then when I came back, I came out of the role I was in into a more pressurized role once Michaela went into secondary, because I thought, I can move into something else. And I arrived at this company, which is fantastic, great role, delighted. And I just thought, this is me. Now I'm going to be here until I retire. This is me. And then I met Mark Donovan, who is going to be on our national conference. And I was on a leadership program with Mark, and he literally sat me down and we were trying to do, what your goals are. And I was like, I don't have any, I don't know what I want to do. And he was like, you have to stop this. Yeah. And he uses a great phrase, you have to get your car out of the garage. So Mark kind of unlocked something in me in terms of, I'm not done yet. I don't need to be done yet. and then helped me to make, I suppose, lots of decisions in terms of the roles I've taken on, and just not to be afraid, just to go for it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and to go for it and to be happy in going for it. And then I had, on my journey, I did my master's when Michaela was a couple of years old, again, remotely and whilst working, and I met one of my greatest mentors on that course, and it was about 5 years ago, and he actually set up the Irish chapter, the initial one, the first, he started it 21 years ago. And I'd have a great affection for him and a great respect for him. And he basically said to me about 4 or 5 years ago, Jackie, are you ever going to get off your and do something about this and be involved in the world you're in, because, you know, you really should step up here. And I suppose it was his nudge that made me think, you know what, he's right, you need to start giving back here. And that's why I started the different volunteer roles I did in the project management community. That's how I met Kate. I met Kate because we did some volunteering with the BT Young Scientists, and really has led me to being the second only female chapter in 20 odd years, chapter president, which is amazing.
And as I said, I literally just had to hand Jackie the mic and she was gone. And some of the comments that were coming up here, one of them was, you know, I think one of the slides there, Katrina, that we had was something like, as a woman, is there something that you would like to be asked to do? I've totally butchered that question, but that was the gist of it. And the line that somebody had there was, challenge me. There you go. I didn't remember that
challenge
part.
me.
What was the one thing you would like other women to do to support you? So challenge you.
Challenge you.
And Mark challenged you. You were challenged all the way along, and also supported by your family. Another thing that I think is great, before we open it up for discussion with everybody, and then the questions, is role models come in all shapes and sizes, all walks of life. And it could be because they're, in the past, women have been pitted against other women. It was a terrible thing. I don't know. I do know, have an idea of where it came and how it started, but it doesn't need to be, and it doesn't work. And there is that Madeleine Albright quote that we've all read there earlier, which is, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And that sounds angry and that sounds strong, but actually she was at a point where she needed it to be that powerful. For us now, we know, there it is, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. We know the power of it. You've all mentioned it at different stages. And it doesn't matter if somebody chooses to be a stay-at-home mom. As Catherine said, your choice, whatever your choice is, if it's to go in and work in EBS while you support your degree, you tell that person what your plan is, it should be supported, because you're telling them your truth. Jackie, you had a great friend who was an older woman at a school gate, that role model, and she stays with me. I love that story.
Well, I've worked with lots of women who have been terrific role models, and I've met some great women whose choices was to stay at home, and are fantastic. But the one that really resonates with me is a mom I met as part of the Mom Network, as I call it, and she's since passed away, God rest her soul. But she was an amazing woman, and she had 8 children, and I would have to say that family were the most educated family I ever met in my whole entire life. They all had masters and degrees, and her and her husband, very normal, average Dublin family, put them all through college. She had some sad times in her life. One of her daughters passed away and left a young child 2 years of age, who her and her husband were raising as their own. And that child was a friend of my daughter's as she was in school. So this lady, I knew her from my daughter Michaela. They only lived down the road. The girls are friends, and I met her at the school gate one day, and we were chatting away. And I think I was just in my second year of my master's, or finishing it, and she started to tell me about that she was going back to school to do one of those access pathways into college. Now, she'd always been a very creative person and always painted, really into art and everything. And she said, yeah, I'm going to give it a go. So she went back and she did one of those access pathways. And then she told me she did really well and she thought it was good, and she was going to apply to do arts in UCD. And so she, what age was she then, Jackie? She was in her 60s. And her very words to me were, I said it to my husband, and her husband was an amazing man because he was so supportive. You think of a generation you wouldn't be, but he said, you have put all our kids through college. It's now your turn. You take your turn. And back she went to UCD, and she loved it. She loved the experience. there was a couple of women similar ages to herself, not far off, that they used to go on their travel pieces to Istanbul and Berlin to see all the art. And then she graduated, and then she decided, I'm going to go back and do my master's. And she went back and did her master's in art as well. And her, I think, going to say her second youngest daughter graduated in UCD the same day with masters. Now, that's the woman I look up to.
There you go. That teabag line that was just there. A woman is like a teabag. You never know how strong she is until you put her into hot water. Every single person on here today, everybody who's registered with us and watching this, all of you, we all know so many women like this. And I just think in recent years, it's only we're hearing, really realizing the importance of those stories. And can we have a look, Katrina, before we open up to the panel now, in some of those, what is the development that we've seen in the gender balance in recent years? There's some great answers. What progress have you seen in gender equality or gender equality? So we talked about that, and then, oh yes, we did look at that, and that people felt intimidated being the only woman in a room, but also rarely now the only woman in a room. Brilliant. People are seeing that. Male allies, exactly, the he for she's, words and actions, and more women supporting women and women in senior positions. Could I open it up for you guys just before we get to other questions that we have? Curiosity is something that a lifelong wish to learn is something all of you have. It's almost a prerequisite to success. And also a curiosity and collaborations are two things that have really kind of come through strong. But sacrifice, you've all made sacrifices regardless of levels and ages. So can you share with us some of those sacrifices that you have had to make? Because we aren't trying to play out here or make it up. Catherine talked about it a little bit earlier, but what type of sacrifices have you made and felt? And it just makes it more real for others who are looking at you and aspiring, realizing it's not all rosy, you have to make decisions. Maybe if we could start with Kate, because we started with you.
Yeah, so I think when it comes down to sacrifices, a lot of seeing as like my whole career has come from the age of 14 to the age of 20, like my sacrifices are pretty different to those of you guys, let's say the others on the panel. So like my sacrifices really came down to like when I moved into college and everything else. I was telling you about this, Taragh, when I was in first year in college. I'm in third year now in UCC, but when I was in first year, I entered the Entrepreneurs Organization Global Student Entrepreneur Awards, and basically what they were is that you compete in your national competitions. If you win the nationals, you get to represent Ireland in a global competition. And in first year, I went 2 years in a row, and in first year it was in Macau in China, and that was the only thing I wanted to go for. I was like, oh, China would be class, which it was an amazing experience. But I remember when I was in China, the one thing I remember sacrificing to enter this competition, which seemed so important to me at the time, was missing the Trinity Ball. Even though I was in UCC, but I was sure Trinity was up at the top of my list.
I'm giggling with you earlier, we all are, but not, it's all relative. This is all relative. The sacrifices are age, or you know what I mean? Trinity Ball, Jesus, back in the day, or any ball.
Beyond honestly, so like that was like the biggest thing. And I remember I was like, I think I was 8 or 9 hours ahead or behind, whatever way the time was at the time. And I remember like I was going to bed and the girls were only getting ready and they were sending me all the pictures, and I was sitting there in a hotel room by myself in Macau, and I was like, this is the worst thing ever. When now when I look back on it, it was, they'd have only killed to have had the experience I had to be in Macau and China and be having the opportunities that I got out of doing that and having those pitching competitions.
Absolutely.
Time I thought my life was over. I thought that was it. And I remember I think I was flying home the following day and I was like, oh God, if only the one day. And that was definitely like, I think that kind of puts into perspective like the different ages between us all.
It really does, Kate. When you told me that, I got it. I absolutely got it. And the other sacrifices as well. When other people were off doing some of the social events, and you and Annie were sitting down doing a business plan. I mean, yeah, it's real. And Rebecca, you gorgeous messages coming in from your fellow colleagues in Expleo, which is lovely, and they're right here and right behind you. Some of the sacrifices that again you had to make, that you chose to make.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting because I'd never thought of them as sacrifices before. I guess that is a way to look at it. But definitely when I look at my career, so I came straight out of college as a grad, and then I had about 6 months of anonymity in Explayo. So in that 6 months, I was straight out of college. I was young. We were getting free booze from the company for the first time ever. We were having a lot of fun. And then I just remember the switch when, like, all of a sudden, even though I technically was still a grad, there was eyes on me, there was expectation, there was already a hint of a global role back then. And then all of a sudden I had to be a lot more aware of what was going on. So, you know, it was really just making sure that, you know, I couldn't just go hang out with the other grads, because I had to be very conscious of what was going to be said in the office the next day. I had to keep my head down. There was a lot of weekend work. There's probably still more weekend work than there should be at the moment, but, you know, it was I remember for the first 6 months when I took over my service, because I built it from scratch, which it's now a global service, but it wasn't when I started it. You know, for 6 months I kept my head down. I didn't go out. I stayed focused. And then I remember when I unveiled parts of the service and everyone was like, well, when did this happen? This was all very easy. And I was like, you didn't see the 6 months when teams, like, I'm only showing you the easy. Let's not get it mistaken, kind of thing. So, you know, I never saw it as sacrifice, and, you know, I'd probably do it again. I think Catherine said it, and I'm at a slightly different stage, but, you know, you do have to pause sometimes. And that's something, like, I thought I was indestructible. I was big enough. I was bold enough to kind of take on the world. And, you know, even at the moment, my job is evolving again, and you know, I've taken on more responsibility in the last couple of weeks, and, you know, you actually have to pause, look up, and breathe for a second, and be like, is this still where I want to go? Like, what am I trying to do? And then appreciate what has got you to this point. But again, to reiterate, I didn't do that for a while, and your body feels it, so does your mind. So you got to take a breath.
And sacrifice, you're right, it's a tough word to use, but it's just showing that dedication, you know, and that the dedication to what it is that you're really going for. And it's slightly to slightly change the, because I'm just aware we've only 14 minutes, to slightly change the sacrifice way. There's a lot of questions in here from parents, and everybody knows that there are a lot of men behind the scenes supporting women, just as there are women supporting men behind the scenes, and partners in different same-sex relationships. But for Jackie and for Catherine, questions here showing that about people who are mothers, who are working mothers, be it at home now or in the office, and dealing with things like the childcare, the guilt, the dirty house. A lot of questions kind of covering those type of areas. Jackie and Catherine, if you'd like to fly in on those questions.
Well, Catherine, I'll take it first. I suppose the question really is, you have to choose who you're going to be in the world. And the real reality is that you can't be that superhuman person in every field of your life. It's as simple as that. So something has to give, and that giving can be about having some other help, or just saying, actually, it's worse now during the pandemic because you're at home during the pandemic. At least you used to be able to walk out to work and leave everything behind. But I think you just have to assess what you're prepared to let go and not to angst about, and that it's okay. That's what I think it is. And I think it's about choosing to be like that, because otherwise you can have the feelings like Rebecca and Catherine have described, where you're completely overwhelmed. I'm not saying I don't get overwhelmed in days, but I'm just saying that you have to try and, you know, figure out what works for everything you have on the plate with you and your family, and that requires compromise. And that's what you have to figure out, is what's the compromise for you. It's not the same for everybody. Everybody has different backgrounds, has different partners, have different setups, different types of families. So it's not the same, but it's just understanding what that compromise is what it is.
That's brilliant. There's another point as well. Somebody said, as a man, Catherine, somebody was saying, as a father, how can he empower his 8-year-old daughter?
It comes from, I think 8-year-olds are just amazing these days.
9.
Anyway,
She's 9.
9-year-olds.
Yeah.
It could be my husband that just checked in there. But I think the kids these days, when I do a comparison check to what I was like versus what my own daughter, and she's 10 now, what they're like, I think they are just amazing people. The confidence and the resilience that many of them have, and I know they've gone through quite a tough patch at the moment being out of school, but the exposure that they have is naturally equipping them for certain things in life. And that could be exposure from listening to the conversations your mom and dad has now, because I know my daughter, you think she's after swallowing the Harvard Business Review because she's hearing my business talk all the time. So they're getting exposure to certain things in a natural way now that that we didn't have. So they're ahead of the game. And when they see conversations like this happening, they see that the parents have an awareness. How do I empower my daughter? Well, that's the first step, because you have an awareness that you want to empower your daughter, to give them whatever opportunities that you can give them, give them the support and the belief mechanisms to be whoever they want to be, and let them know that they can be whoever they want to be, because the opportunities now are immense. And I think the generations coming behind us have they have a much more mindful way and approach to life, and an approach to an awareness of what makes them happy. And for some of us, we've had to go through half a life before, actually, I'm not happy when I'm doing that, I'll do something different. Whereas I think the generations coming behind us seem to have that confidence already, and that awareness to know what makes them happy. And it comes with that a natural uplift in empowerment and moving along and getting along in society today.
That's great. Guys, I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions that have come in, if that's all right, and we'll fly through everybody in a quick round on them. Somebody's asking here, as a man, what is the best way? And actually, this looks forward to, Jackie, your point of the way we should be. As a man, what can be done to empower and support women? So if we start with you, Jackie, and we'll go backwards then.
What's the question? As a man, what can he...
To support women better in the future and to empower, what can they do?
Listen, I think, is what it is. Understand what you're trying to achieve. Support. I think Rebecca mentioned it about having those powerful female friends around her. I'm really glad to say I have some of those, and they're not judgmental. So don't be judgmental. You know, we are fundamentally different. Men and women are fundamentally different. They're not meant to be the same. So, you know, don't be judgmental, and just hear and listen, and then understand how to help or assist is what it is. Excellent.
Excellent. Catherine?
Yeah, it's just having that empathy for potentially the challenges that may be going on at home, going on at work, going on with everyone's family. And I think and allowing them to be themselves, and not asking them to change or adjust to certain situations. Allow them to be themselves, because their themselves is good enough. And I think sometimes women feel a pressure or a sense of responsibility to conform to what it's like to be in a boardroom, or conform what it's like to be in a room full of men. But women have a lot to bring to the table. So whether it's a more kind of jovial atmosphere in the boardroom, I think that's really important. But don't just allow them to bring themselves to the workplace, because they will flourish after that.
Absolutely. Empathy, compromise, communication, so many skills that can be, and humor sometimes when it's needed. Rebecca?
For me, you know, don't tell us how we feel. We're very aware, more so than you are. And, you know, by that I mean sometimes, and it ties back to listening. You know, I had a situation yesterday where I was describing a situation I was in where a man was not being very polite, and the man wasn't a bad man, but he ended up saying, well, you know, did you think about this, or did you understand him correctly? And it's like, I did. I absolutely understood him correctly, and I'm not the issue here.
Yeah, you were being mansplained. Oh dear.
No, so
okay.
It goes back to just make sure you listen and believe.
Love it. And Kate?
I think when it comes to like how men can empower women. Like, it really comes down to when we were starting, when we were younger, and it was our dad who was bringing us everywhere. And it's really just like to normalize equality, normalize the stigmas around women in business and women being successful. And I think it's really just like, if you don't make a big deal out of it, it won't become a big deal. And you just need to just normalize equality and support them in what they want to do. And that if they think they can't do it, it's even more the reason they probably can. And it's just the support, giving the confidence, and just the simple things like that. Just boosting confidence can bring someone a long way.
I love this, and I love the cross-section answers from the panel. Honestly, it's so refreshing. Everybody's bringing something completely different. Another question there is, somebody was saying, at this stage, both men and women are both working and in the home, so nobody can escape. So there's a lot of understanding there, because way back when the man did traditionally leave and the woman stayed at home. A couple of people have brought up that idea of the compromising, feeling that you're not doing a good enough job. And I'm going to, you can leave this one here, because that's a good one. And the idea that compromise, you feel like you're not nailing anything at home and you're not nailing it properly in the office. That feeling of failing, a different. And somebody else said that they feel that they are not, they're currently approaching burnout and thinking of having kids, and feel like I need to work like mad to get my promotion before a potential maternity leave, or I'll be left behind. What advice can you give me? And somebody else, a similar question on that theme, which is, they feel like they're at the point where no matter how hard they work, they aren't there yet, wherever there is. The standards keep moving. Whoever wants to jump in on that one.
So by whose standards, Tara? Because I think
Yes.
like Catherine, I probably chased that for a long time. And great example, earlier on in my career, I went into one consultancy, and I think, you know, I remember my first day thinking I want to be on that management team, and 3.5 years later I was there, and within 6 months I resigned and moved on because it wasn't what I wanted. I liked the idea of what it was, I liked what it represented, but actually the work just wasn't what I wanted to do. So it's by whose standards, and I think, you know, this is where as women we can be lacking in empathy to each other, because, you know, there is no roadmap for where you need
or
to
ourselves.
be, or ourselves. Like you can't compare yourself to, you know, somebody who's extremely successful, you know, who probably behind the scenes might have lots of money, nannies, etc. It just doesn't compare. So to whose standard is what I'm asking, what I'd ask. And you try and be kind to yourself and establish what your standard is within your situation, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying don't shoot for it. I'm just saying trying to be kind to yourself about not failing. And you're not failing. It's just about understanding how to move to the next step. That's not failing.
Yes, there's a great point there that somebody said. She's at an age now where it could be a man, but I have a feeling it's a woman. I have an age now where I have great confidence. It's confidence. It amazes me how easy management at senior and director level is, because they're delegating. They've built a strong team. You've all said that. Absolutely. About your strong teams around you. Another point as well somebody said is that somebody else made a point there that how do you teach the boys that cleaning is not just for their sisters? And you know what? I'm coming from a big family of 12. We all had to do everything. So we had that. But I've been in households and grown up, you know, where it was a previous generation. Often the boys got to do the outside work and the girls got to do the inside work. Thankfully, I think we're all nodding there. I think we're seeing that change. And again, as you said, Jackie, who says that's the way it has to be? You don't like it, get over it. Susan Sarandon made a great point one time. She was interviewed, busy family woman, big actress. Thelma and Louise is referenced for anybody who can't place her right now. And her point was, I do and focus on my work and family. If the fridge doesn't get defrosted and it ends up breaking, I can deal with it. The house is not her priority. That was her choice. She's going to focus a little bit easier when you're probably a multimillionaire. But the point remains the same. And you know, don't feel the guilt if the house is messy, unless it's your priority. And if it means then not having people over, well, at the moment, that's okay. You can deal with it. I know we've just 2 minutes left. How can we make sure every child? Oh yeah, that was the sister's job one. a couple of points just while we're waiting for the next question to pop up there. I do think as well, the key collaborations, and a quick advice from each of you on collaborations with women for people who haven't really got it up and going yet. If you're a project manager, the PMI, you're here, you're setting up events for people, you have to please join, if you haven't already, the national conference on Thursday. Dr. Sue Black, Dr. Martina Ryan, I have been blown away and blessed to be prepping them and talking to them before the event. Many other speakers as well. It's going to be a brilliant, brilliant talking point about women, about working and how they're doing what they're doing. And all of you have shared with us how you do what you do so well. So there's a little bit of detail for the conference, which is on Thursday. But before we let you go, you're each of you, your mentors or your collaboration with women, the tip that you can share with other people, the take-home tip for them. Kate.
I think one of the biggest things that I've kind of noticed from a few of the questions that are coming in is, instead of asking, are you good enough, you should be asking them, are they good enough for you? And is that position good enough for you? Because at the end of the day, you definitely are good enough for it.
Oh my God, Kate, you're fabulous. I love that. And Rebecca, we're reading your quote. Yeah. Read it with pride.
Yeah, that's crazy. But no, I think, realize that no one's going to care as much about your career as yourself. Take that as your starting point. Find mentors who can challenge you and help you along the way, but realize that you're the driving force, and, be kind and be proud of what you're doing, and keep going.
And by mentors, Jackie, what do we mean? And your view on the female collaborations that you've had?
Well, some of the best times in my working career and in my volunteer life has been around a group of women, like-minded women, but I would say who have empathy, who have all different backgrounds. So some are career women, some don't have children, some have children, all different backgrounds. But what we have is empathy, and we don't judge each other, and we're there to support each other through all our successes. And I'm not going to say them failures, because really it's about resilience and picking yourself up and moving forward. And what you need is people in your corner who are going to help you do that. They can have the bad day. You can kind of say, oh, I didn't do that right. What am I going to do? Yep, have the rant, away you go, and then pick yourself. You have a group of people around you. You can do this. Pick yourself up. Tomorrow's different. Change happens. Enduring change, I think Ruth Baden Ginsburg said, happens one step at a time.
Love it. Brilliant. I actually need all of these written in a virtual glass. Bring back Google Lens and I can walk around, or Google goggles, and I can wear them and have them in my head all day. That's brilliant. And always good to hear Ruth Bader Ginsburg quoted, especially in the times that we're in. Catherine.
Yeah, I think reach out and get involved with groups, with networks that's only in it to give you the feedback, to give you the positive affirmation that will give you the impetus to stay involved in things, to press pause if that's what you need to do. And don't be too hard on yourself. Maybe that role, and there was some comments coming in there, maybe that role or that company just isn't ready for you yet. And because I really feel a tipping point coming in society, with how fast this change can accelerate. And I wouldn't be paying much attention to, where the World Economic Forum is saying it's another 100 years, but we've got so much achieved. And every year, these small milestones are making life at work or life at home better for all women. So look out for each other and support each other.
I couldn't think of a better note to end on. Before we do, just to say thank you to Katrina for everything there in the background, for keeping all of the Mentimedia polls coming up here and to keep us up to speed and linked to you. Thank you so much, everybody who joined in to watch with us today for the first ever International Women's Day event by the Ireland chapter of the PMI, which wouldn't have happened without the second ever only female president of the PMI, Jackie Glynn. So thank you so much, Jackie. And also thank you to Catherine. I love your calmness. it seems to radiate in the background that you have there as well, and the advice that you're bringing. Again, everybody is available on LinkedIn if you want to reach out to Rebecca. And thank you so much for your honesty, for sharing. I'm just so excited about the success you've achieved to date. And Kate, it has been really inspiring. I think there's no excuse for anybody, regardless of age or gender, when we listen to all of the stories you for today. It has been truly brilliant. I couldn't think of a better way to spend International Women's Day. I'm honoured, and thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed it. I feel inspired. I'm not going to sleep.
Thanks, Taragh.
So, thank you all so much, and thank you again, Christina. And again, National Conference. It's on Thursday. Places are still available. There are brilliant speakers. Just have a look at the brochure and see who's there. And I'm really excited as well, Jackie, and to see other events that you have coming up. It's got a very, very busy, exciting calendar for 2021, despite the challenges.
Thanks, Taragh.
So thank you, everybody. That's it, and good night. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Very much.